we'll do the live thing first. Like, hey everybody, welcome back to the Bigmark podcast. It's me, your host, Bigmark. If it's your first time watching, welcome. If not, welcome back. Like I always say, if you're wanting to reach out to the podcast, hit us up on our DMs or in the comments on any of the videos, or I'm pretty sure you can even comment on Spotify now. Anyway, hit us up there if you ever want to let us know about a topic you want to hear about, or you want to come on as a guest. Like I always say, please feel free to reach out right now. If you've watched last week's episode and this week's episode, it might make a lot of sense. You know, maybe why I'm not even reaching out to you. So stay tuned. We're going to be talking about burnout today again. We were talking about it last week, but we're going to continue to talk about it today. Hopefully a little bit, a bit of a more positive perspective, if you will. But anyway, welcome back to the Bigmark podcast. Thank you all for being here. Your time is so valuable, and I appreciate you taking it to be here with me, whether I'm in the background in your car, on your TV. Hi. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. I love you. This is the most you can do to help and support. If you want to go that extra mile, like the video if you're watching on YouTube, wherever, and subscribe to the channels and follow along and do all that fun stuff and engage with everything. And that's the best way you can support. And if you want to go that extra mile, check out the Patreon on patreon.com/thebigmarkpod. Like I mentioned, we're getting back into burnout. I wanted to take a little bit more of a proactive approach this week. I mean, I kind of left last week's episode with some tips to kind of get out of burnout and everything. And, you know, it's a little bit hard. And for those who haven't seen last week's episode yet or heard last week's episode, we talked about burnout, which is usually related to your job and kind of professional environment where, you know, you've just been pushing it and your body starts to do just that. It starts to burn out. And generally speaking, key signs of burnout include forgetfulness and difficulty concentrating, diminished pride in your work, losing sight of yourself and your goals, difficulty maintaining relationships and being present with loved ones, frustration and irritability with coworkers, and unexplained muscle tension, pain, fatigue, and insomnia. It's actually kind of funny when I look at those things, right? And I think it happened last week's episode. Like, I feel a lot of that stuff. But it's also one of those things where I feel like burnout can sometimes be hard to recognize. Number one, because it does kind of come on gradually. It doesn't kind of all hit you at once. But a lot of these signs of burnout also seem like they're just reasons you're burnt out, right? So it becomes these like crazy, this crazy negative feedback loop where it just keeps kind of feeding back into itself. And it is just as physical of an ailment as it is a mental ailment, or issue, if you will. You know, there's different ways you can kind of approach it. And kind of what I wanted to go to today was, you know, talk about like last week's episode, kind of talking about some situations. I told a story where I was definitely burnt out and it didn't have the best consequences. If you want to go back and listen to that episode. But obviously, you know, burnout can have a far-reaching impact, you know, often negatively affecting your work performance, keeping you from enjoying hobbies and time with family or relaxing outside of work, and increasing the risk of health concerns, including cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, depression, and suicide. Whoa. But again, you know, I'm reading this from an article on Healthline, which is a really good resource. It has 11 different approaches to helping fix your burnout. And again, that's the thing, is that you kind of have to you got to go back to squares with this. You got to kind of figure out what is the cause, if you can, if it's the source, or if it's many sources. You got to kind of figure out and prioritize probably which one is the first one to get after. Because again, it's kind of one of these things. If you're not taking care of your own burnout, you can't enjoy these other things, right? So you kind of have to really put yourself first here, which can obviously, unfortunately, take away from potentially what you want to do and what you want to do for others. But if you're not there, you can't pour from an empty cup. You know what I mean? So you got to kind of put yourself first, and you got to put yourself forward, and you got to do that. But also, it is a physical thing. So you got to look at your diet. You got to look at how hydrated you are, not, let alone meditation strategies and doing all these things. But, again, these different sources it isn't always just your job either. Right. So it's hard to nail these things down. But again, starting with the physical body, like I said, with diet and hydration and things like that is just always a good place to start, because it's really the core of your being, and your health and fitness does completely relate and inform the rest of your life. So be attuned to that. How should I say? Take care of yourself, your hydration, your diet, everything like that, and your mental health will kind of come with too, right? Especially diet, even if it's literally just that. And I guess that, that's not always easy for everybody. But again, you got to remember, it's like 80 to 95% of your body's serotonin is produced in the gut. So if that's all out of whack and your biotics are all out of fucking scenarios, it's not going to be good. So take care of it, but know the signs as well. Once you get after that physical and you at least start to make steps, and it's not going to all happen at once, right? It's like training a muscle. You can't just like bench press 300 pounds right away. You got to take yourself one step at a time. But again, try to identify those things that are contributing to your burnout too, right? People in school having a rigorous academic schedule, dealing with relationship problems, and caring for loved ones with serious or chronic health conditions. All these things can add to your burnout, let alone trying to do too much on your own. That's, something that I definitely struggle with, in the sense of, trying to do all these things on my own, trying to think, all right, maybe I don't want to necessarily not even burden others, but I want to try to be independent. I want to be this independent person. It is in essence having the opposite effect, that I will eventually need support from other people, not even just wanting it, right? Like, that's the thing that I've been trying to work through, is I want to avoid selfishness as much as I can, but in keeping things to myself or trying to deal with things on my own, I almost force other people's hands to either step in because I'm not communicating my needs or asking for help. I'm forcing other people to step in, which is pretty selfish, which isn't very selfless. And, it's a tough pill to swallow, but again, these are the things that you kind of have to take a pretty tough look at yourself when it comes to dealing with burnout. Like I mentioned before, you gotta identify those immediate changes, and these are ways that we want to get out of burnout. You want to talk to people you trust, right? You want to open up to people that are close to you, because that will hopefully, at least even just hearing yourself speak through some of this stuff, and hearing, hopefully you have a supportive friend group, but whoever you're going to talk to, even just hearing it without them saying anything can sometimes really open your mind to things, right? Obviously talking to a therapist is going to be something that you can also do, if you don't really feel like you have a close friend or loved one that you want to confide in or feel like confiding. I mean, I struggle with that, like I mentioned, but like going to a therapist really puts you in that mindset. It's kind of like going to the gym to work out. Like, you're going to the gym. Once you're there, there's nothing really else to do but work out. So once you're in your therapist appointment, there's nothing really else. Even if you never talk about that stuff ever again in your life, if you're doing it there, at least that's some step, right? So like I mentioned, examine these options, go through these things, try to take back some of that control, right? If you want to really start, you do feel out of control, right? Like when you are burnt out, you feel like, unless you make drastic changes, nothing's going to give, right? Like, it's almost like it really is a breeding ground, if you will, for all or none thinking. Now, we want to avoid that. We want to avoid that as much as we can, that all or none thinking, because it's only gonna hurt us, and we're gonna pull the trigger, pull the chute on some shit that's been bothering us, that we've, again, through this process, hopefully worked through this process and identified whatever might be potentially causing these different things. But that's the thing, right? It's like, you want to kind of, you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, I guess is what I'm trying to say here, right? Like, deal with the burnout first. If you're feeling burnt out, it's like the only way to kind of get out of a negative feedback loop is hit it with like a positive feedback loop almost, right? It's like, how are you gonna, you got to fight fire with fire or whatever, but like, you got to get in to get out kind of thing in this circumstance, where it's just like, okay, how am I going to fight this like seemingly immovable object with an unstoppable force, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So anyway, the approach that you have to take with dealing with the burnout is dealing with the burnout. Simply put. Now, one of the things is, when you're kind of dealing with this situation, you could kind of break it down into maybe 4 different ways. If you're really kind of lost, you're really not really thinking about kind of where to even start. I understand. Prioritize. Start there. Like I mentioned before, some of these things just have to get done, but others can wait until you have more time and energy. Decide which tasks are less important and set them aside. Delegate. You can do everything yourself. So if more tasks than you can handle, if more tasks than you can handle need immediate attention, pass them off to someone you trust. Leave work at work. Part of burnout recovery is learning to prioritize work-life balance. And after leaving work, focus on relaxing and recharging for the next day. If you can. I know it's tough in these days where you can bring work home and you can work from home and do all these shits. But try to bifurcate. Be firm about your needs. Talk to others. Let them know what's happening. Explain that you need some support in order to take care of your health and manage your workload productively. Now, it's kind of funny, one of the hardest things too for, I think, people who get themselves in a burnout, they're probably trying to please a lot of people, but you got to try to set these boundaries, right? It's tough, but sometimes, you got to just like put things on pause, really, really, really check in with yourself. Do you have the time? Do you have the energy to do it? I know I spread myself crazy thin, and now it's really hard. It's really hard here. Like, there's a good quote here that says, "You're not lazy, selfish, or mean for declining a request for your precious time. Being selective about accepting commitments is key to taking care of your mental health, honoring the truly important commitments, and proactively preventing burnout." So again, like I said, you can't pour from an empty cup. So practice self-compassion, practice, being kind to yourself, pay attention to those needs. Make enough time for restful sleep, of course. Spend time with loved ones, but don't overdo it. Alone time is important too. Now, try to get some physical activity in each day. Try to work out in some ways, even if it's a little run, even if you're like jumping on the spot, skipping for a little bit. Do something and build up. Eat nutritious meals and stay hydrated. Try meditation, yoga, or other mindfulness practices for improved relaxation. And try to remember what makes you happy. What is it that, that does kind of find that? Because that's what that's what I feel, that you feel that disconnect when you're burned out from those feelings, and you kind of forget. And even if you're still doing them, the things that make you happy almost sometimes feel like they're adding to the burnout too, right? So super heavy. But it's kind of funny thinking about all this stuff, like leaving work at work. It reminds me of that show Severance. I don't know if anyone's seen that yet, but I'm probably going to end up doing a podcast episode on that, because it's a tremendous show. Finished season 1, already into season 2. Ben Stiller, Adam Scott, I think is it? Anyway, no, his name is Mark Scout on the show. Drippy. Anyway, super good show, but that's that kind of thing where it's like, you know, this all or none thing. Are these people burnt out and they just are like, I'm done? If you've seen the show, you know what I'm talking about. And you're just like, you know, because essentially the show's theme is kind of leaving work at work, if you know what I mean. So I won't go into it. I don't want to spoil anything, but it's kind of funny thinking about that, if you know what I'm saying. You know, if there was a way to separate your work self from your real self, that would be interesting. Anyway, just wanted to kind of go over a few more actual action items that you can kind of go through, try to make your way through it, because I'm going to try to take my own advice here, people. You know, like I've always said, one of the reasons why I have this podcast is for accountability and trying again. And, you know, it's kind of funny. One of the symptoms or signs of burnout that I said before was forgetting certain things. And I think it was kind of talking about more like work and stuff. And as I mentioned, burnout is this gradual process. One of the things when I look back for over the last couple months or so, I started like forgetting words. I'm usually like pretty fucking sharp with, you know, relatively encyclopedic knowledge on things. So I kind of know a lot of like, you know, my vocabulary is decent. I don't want to toot my own horn here, but it's been weird. Like I'm just forgetting words and fucking people and like weird shit, like where I usually normally remember that. So again, you're taking tips about burnout from someone who's burnt out. So just remember that. But great article. Like I said, from Healthline, healthline.com. The article is called Burnout Recovery, 11 Strategies to Help You Reset. Reviewed by Dr. Deborah Weatherspoon. Tremendous. Thanks again for listening, everybody. Check out that article for some more tips. And if you're burnt out, I think it's like 5 to 7 people in North Americans are burnt out right now. It's closer to 10. You know, not to keep dredging up old wounds, but I think, you know, we went through a whole mess of shit during COVID, and no one ever really got a break. We just went right back into real life and just kept rocking and rolling for the better. But also, who knows? I wish we could all just put a big pause on the world, but she just keeps on spinning around. Thanks, y'all. I appreciate it. Your time. If you're burnt out, let me know. Let's chat. Let's try to work through this together. If not, let me know what life is like on the other side. Anyway, thank y'all for listening. I love each and every one of you. We'll see you next time. Good luck. Peace.